Welcome back on Delmod. Today I want to propose you a video about a series of video about the 9th edition for Warhammer 40k released by the Games Workshop. So in the description you can find also the playlist where you can find all the videos related about the core rules and advanced rules related about this edition. So now we can start to see all the rules that we have to know. So we talk now about stratagems. The stratagems are special rules that we can, spending command points, use for our army. And these command points are gained in different ways, or because there are units or models that can give you command points, or if your battle is a battle forced one, so if all the units are part of a detachment and there are not units that are free of them, then you gain a certain amount of command points. And moreover, if your army is a battle forced one, as we have seen in the command phase, we gain another command point each turn. So we can gain, I don't say easily, but we can gain a lot of command points to use. And now we can see that there are certain stratagems that are common to all the armies and are the ones that we are going to talk about. I want to remind you also that you can use the stratagems also with Unbound, so not battle force army, in the case that you have been able to gain some of these command points in some way. So eventually remember that being Unbound doesn't mean that you can't use stratagem. Simply it's difficult to have command points to use the stratagems. One more thing to remember anyway is that you can spend the command points for the stratagems, but the stratagem can't be used more than once for the battle, the same stratagem. So you can't have that you can use more than once the same stratagem, other than if they applied before the battle or at the end of the battle round. In that case, there is no limit to the amount of time that you can use that stratagem, except that you had the command points available to be used them. So pay attention. And the first one, it's one of the most used of all the stratagems, and it's command reroll. It costs a single command point, and with this you can reroll a hit roll, a wound roll, a damage roll, a saving throw-in or an advanced roll, a charge roll, a psychic test, a denied the witch test, or even the number of attack for a random attacks for a weapon. So in that case anyway, you remember that you reroll that roll, test or saving throw. So if you reroll the test, you reroll all the dice for the test, not only one dice. So remember this difference, but it's really one of the most used of the stratagems, and sometimes it's a pity that you can't have two or more to use about this stratagem in the same phase, because sometimes really you need. And then we had cut them down that it costs one command point. In this case it applies when the enemy unit of your opponent fall back, and before the models of that unit are moved, you roll a d6 for each model from your army that is within the engagement range of that enemy unit, and for each of 6 the enemy unit suffer one mortal wound. So this is surely quite interesting one, because it means that you can even finish the opponent or kill some of the models more of that unit, that can be useful even for the next moral taste. So it's not bad, and it depends surely by the amount of models that you have in the engagement range. So it can become really quite interesting for the armies that has unit with a lot of models and with small bases, because they can bring a lot of models in the engagement range. So surely can be quite interesting. So if you had to use in the right positions, but really quite interesting to play with. And then we had Desperate Breakout, that it costs 2 command points. This it's really a peculiar stratagem, because you can use in your moved phase, and you select one unit from your army that has not been selected to move this phase and which it is in engagement range with at least one enemy unit, and roll 1d6 for each model in that unit. For each result of one model of that unit that you choose to fall back in this way, it's destroyed, but you can choose at least this one. And assuming that that unit is not destroyed, you can now attempt to fall back, and when doing so, you can ignore the models that are surrounding you, because this is mainly to avoid the surroundings, because you can't fall back because you don't have space and so on where to move. With this, you'd be able to make the falling back and moving across the models. Obviously, you had to finish more than any engagement range of any enemy that can be around. So remember that there is this option. And remember that after you've done this, anyway, you can't do anything. So no psychic power, no shoot, no declare charge, not be selected to fight, anything else. And remember that this is not allowed, even if you have the rule that you can do such things after falling back. So this is really quite a desperate breakout. So it's a way to preserve your unit in the case that you have not been able to fall back before. So I think that it's quite rare to apply such stratagem, but it can be quite interesting when applied. So you have to find the right situation where to apply such stratagem. And then we have a really useful stratagem that is emergency disembarkation, that for one command point let you make that you can disembark from a transport using a 6 volley inch instead of the 3 volley inch of a disembarking. And if you go to see my video about the transports, it's really useful, because if your transport is surrounded, it lets you try to disembark setting up the unit farther than otherwise it will be possible. So it's really a good way. The penalty is that instead of having the suffering that it's only with a 1 that you can be destroyed, because you can make the explode version, in this case you have the 1 or 2 result that make you suffer the loss of the models. Anyway, remember that you can't declare a charge or perform a heroic intervention as usually in the same turn. So remember that it can be quite useful, because it lets you save a unit that otherwise will be killed by the surrounding of the enemies, or maybe because you want to be closer to a certain objectives in the next turn or so on. So there are a lot of ways that this can be useful. So eventually pay attention. And now we have something that in the previous edition was something that it was common, and now it's a stratagem. For one command point you can make Overwatch. I described the Overwatch in my video about the shooting phase, so eventually go to see it. But it is useful because it lets you use the stratagem when a unit declared a charge against one or more unit, and select one of the units that has been declared to be charged, and so use the rule Overwatch. So it's a way to bypass the fact that you are going to suffer the charge. And sincerely, I find it really quite useful, because you can, for example, destroy some models or so on, so kill the models that can charge, or eventually try to make that you can create some losses, some wounds to some creatures. So it's a way really to facilitate certain things. So I think that it's a really useful stratagem, but you have to pay attention, because you can suffer more charges in the same charge phase, and you have only one that you can do Overwatch. So you have to choose, pay attention which is your choice. Then we have something to apply to the fight phase, and it's Counteroffensive, that for 2 command points it lets you use this stratagem after a unit of the enemy has fought in this turn, and select one of your own eligible units to fight it next. Because you alternate the units that are going, the real usage of such stratagem is using when the opponent charge, because in that case you'll be able to make that it charge, it makes one of its unit attack, but then you can select one of yours to or combat before the others one of those unit, or anyway make anyway combat, because you want to kill a unit that is going to make you suffer or so on when it's its turn. So remember that you have to pay attention. Moreover, because I want to remind you that if the opponent charges, the first to make after all the combat for the ones that has charged of the units of your opponent has done, it's your unit. So this is perfect when the opponent charge. So pay attention. And then we have insane bravery, that for 2 command points it lets you pass automatically a moral test. It's only once for battle, so you can't apply each turn, only once for battle, but it's important because it lets you prevent the losses from the moral test. I want to remember you that the new one is quite tragic for elite units. So, for example, if you lost some models and so on, and you remain with only one model for that unit, you can save it applying this, because I want to remember you that for sure you lose another model if you fail the moral test. So being able to pass automatically, it means that you can save that models or those little amount of models that saved. Or for example, like the old Necrons, you can save the models from the gaining losses, because if you gain losses you do not be able to use the reanimation protocol. So remember that there are ways to play, we pay attention this stratagem, and it's not stupid, it's really quite important one. So remember that it's strategically one thing to remember. The downside is that it's only once per battle, so you have to remember that it's limited, so you have to pay quite a lot of attention when you decide to use such stratagem. Anyway, it's really good. And I want to remind you that these are the stratagems for the core rulebook, but each army has its own stratagems, and they can be really quite useful. So learn to read them and learn to make that you can use them in a useful way, because you can really combine a lot of different stratagems often to gain a better result. So give a sight to the stratagems that are available for your army and learn to make that they are part of your usage of your army. Eventually they can even be the core about your army, because you can make that you create an army that make use a lot of this stratagem, because maybe they can make you gain more artifact to deploy on your army and so on. So the stratagems are an essential part of a way to play, so remember about this. Anyway, from Dino Mode it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.